Okay, how to get rid of the screen again?
No, you have to wait to be sure that you don't have the volume, and then you click on the Zoom app, remember?
Turn on the bottom.
Right? But not yet.
Okay, it's
okay?
crossed out. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the morning show. ATV presents, and we need to thank our sponsors. ATV, Elka Suspension does an amazing job taking care of us. So does GBC Tires. These guys have been with us almost from the very beginning. So we want a huge shout out to them. So if you're looking for those products, please go get them. And DBR, they make specialized parts for YFCRs and a few other models. You can go to their website and check those guys out. It's kind of a holiday weekend for a lot of people because they have the 4-day weekend for the 4th of July, the Independence Day of the United States of America. So if you're a patriot like I am, you understand how amazing this day that's coming is and how you should celebrate it, being thankful for all you have, living in the United States, the greatest country of all. So, and that's not saying any of the others aren't good, but hey, we live here. So I know it's a special thing for you, Danny, and your family. You probably got something special going on. I'm not sure. We haven't talked about any plans or anything because you've been world traveling here for a while and missing the shows.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We spent some time in Mexico and some other places and just hanging out. For the 4th of July, we're actually going over to, just because you're not American doesn't mean you can't be a patriot. So for the 4th of July, I think we're going to go over to my buddy Mohaned's house. He's from Saudi Arabia and he celebrates 4th of July just like every other American. So, and he's super proud to be an American now. So,
well, that's awesome. Make sure you give him a big shout out from us. Just like half of our family is from Mexico and they celebrate as well. And
what?
Independence Day, 4th of July.
Oh, okay.
I don't think Valeria was paying attention to what I said, but that's okay.
Are we doing anything?
Yeah, we are. We're celebrating.
Okay.
You know what? Also, there's some big things happen on Friday and Saturday. Mike Penland turned 70 on Friday. If anybody knows anything about the ATV industry, Mike Penland is an icon in the four-wheel drive industry. He did a huge amount of pre-work in the beginning when really riding the utility machines wasn't a science like it is now. You look at Cody Collier, Brandon Frazier, and Landon Wolf. These guys are on full-blown race machines that are utility vehicles for the general public. So Mike Penland has headed that and been a part of that, raced Baja 1000, done a lot of amazing things. So if you're a 4x4 fan or a Mike Penland fan or anything like that, shout him out and give him a happy birthday. In our family, a very special day was yesterday. My wife had her birthday, Terry, and we had a nice celebration to give her an amazing day. It'll roll over into the rest of the weekend. Unfortunately, she has to work on Monday, like some other people. But she had a good party and a good time getting the family together. So happy birthday, Terry! We love you very much.
Love you, Mom.
So happy birthday.
So let's get into this. We talk so much about ATV riders pardon?
And racing.
And racing, that we never really get into the machines. Probably not going to get into too much history, but a little of that's going to come. But let's talk about some of the favorites, or even some of the ones that are really cool that maybe didn't get the same backing, Danny Ray, your first ride on an ATV was an LT50.
LT50? I thought it was an LT80.
No, that was an LT50.
Oh, Uncle Lawrence, huh?
Yep.
He had that little yellow one. I thought it was an 80 for some reason.
No, it was a 50, and it was missing the throttle governor screw. And we tried to fit it with something so that the throttle wouldn't go wide open. And you would not stop mashing it all the way. And I had a rope tied around you, and you drug me all over the desert. They have photos of it. There was a video of it for a while. I don't know what happened to it, but that LT50 was a pretty cool little machine. But your iconic machine that so many people in the industry started was an ATC 70.
Yeah, I'm restoring one right now from Grandpa.
Yeah, we have 5 of them here, and there's a whole group on Instagram and other places that they modify and put big motors in them, suspension. For a long time when I was taping the show, over my right shoulder, there was a suspended ATC 70 frame chassis that Grandpa was putting together. Unfortunately, yeah. I'll probably be the one to finish it, but he did that and worked on it for years. He was designing a disc brake setup for it using his printer, where he would make the part and print it. And I don't know why. Well, the 700 projects he has around here, I know why he didn't finish it.
Yeah. Well, I have the original one that I learned how to ride on in my shed out there in my backyard.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of aftermarket parts that you can buy for them, and so many things that you can do. I just seen on one of the social media pages, not to shout this company out, but Lone Star made a limited edition wider axles for the ATC 70s.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff out there for them. I mean, they got new fenders, they got new seats for them. They're trying to color match everything. I mean, they have a lot of really cool stuff. You have lowering kits, you have bigger suspension, you have front forks that people are putting on them. I mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff. I mean, most of them came with thumb throttles. There's a twist throttle kit out there. I mean, there's so much stuff out there. I mean, those are just little things, but there's a lot of stuff out there that you can do. I mean, there's not to shout them out either, I forget the name of the website, but there's a ATC 70 website that's all the guy does is he makes custom ATC 70 parts. And I can tell you he's out of stock a lot.
Well,
I
yeah,
go on there to look at stuff and he's always out of stock. Because
there's such a huge following of people that want to buy that kind of stuff. And it's just incredible. The 9110s, those were big when I was a kid, and everybody was trying to get into ATVs. I mean, I know we're talking ATCs, but we'll roll into the ATV stuff. There's still people that restore those 90s, like the US 90, the very first ones. Those are the coolest. We had the guy, the premier, probably one of the best restoration guys on the planet on the show. And we were talking about it and we photoed some of those, and incredible stuff that you can look at. I mean, this guy was getting some of his parts, finding them directly from Honda, because he did some work for Honda, and $25,000 US 90. And if anybody's looking for them, the first 130 units, number 1 through 130, are still out there. Nobody knows where they're at.
Honda knows, I bet.
The Honda doesn't even know. They came to the US. They were dealer models. They did all kinds of dealer shows with them, and then they disappeared. So maybe someday they'll find them in a container somewhere, in good shape, or in maybe not so good shape, and rock the industry a little bit, because the set of tires for those machines is like $4,000. Yeah, insane, right?
Yeah,
I would have to say one of the most iconic machines ever built that is still a huge player in the industry is the TRX.
ATCs. The ATC 250R2.
Yeah, but it has a certain following. It doesn't have the same following,
No, dude, the 250R guys are gnarly. They are gnarly. Remember, I mean, we found those Yukon gears, and I just did a little shout out on the 250R Facebook page. And how dare us ask for, money for them? It
was also a different time. I think that crowd understands now based on what happened in the last few years, that what they're trying to build is not easy and that it costs money, you know? I mean, you can build an aftermarket engine now and it's freaking like 10 grand. I mean, the cases, the cylinder, the tranny parts, you know, the outer billet covers, you get it all done and it's all aftermarket. And you're just like, cha-ching, you know, bring in the Brinks truck to get it out of there. And you better put it in glass and never touch it because it's so expensive, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That's my favorite bike. That's probably one of my favorite bikes is the Lobo 250R.
Well, but that's a whole different category of machine for the 250R. I'm talking about the traditionalist. So I had a customer bring in an 86 TRX 250R in, as far as I can tell, almost mint condition. A little bit of touch-up work would need to be done on some of the decals. So one of the first things to go on most machines is the color on your brake mechanism, your axle, your sprocket hub, your rotor hubs. It has all the original color on the axle, all the original color on all of the componentry in the rear end, the front end, the handlebars, the grips are a little worn. There's some worn paint on the guard on the stock pipe. But other than that, the machine is immaculate. The tires are perfect. You know, the rims glisten.
Is he selling it?
No, he wants to. All it needs basically is a service. Probably find an air filter for it and make sure the tuning's good and clean the carbs, so on and so forth, and put it back together so that he can possibly ride it. His riding machine is his ATC 250R that has been ridden more, but some of the components on it are like new shape as well. It's pretty amazing to me that we have this machine now that you could actually bring one of the collector guys in and go, well, yeah, you can't find that part anymore. And most people miss this detail on their machine because other than the cylinder coming off the thing once and putting a pipe on it, it's pretty much all stock. Unbelievable when we get to really sit down and look at them and see some of the cool stuff that's on them. I like going to the aftermarket guys on the three-wheeler stuff. The guys that are building chassis and putting motorcycle motors in them and building some of that stuff. Unfortunately, the U.S. government's got involved in it and crushed it. So I don't know how they're going to get away with keeping doing it unless they make it a recreational machine that's ridden on private property. I don't know. There's always people getting involved in shit that they shouldn't, but you know, that's another topic for another day, maybe on a different channel. You know?
Yeah, that's why you should be a libertarian. Get government out of our lives. Anyways,
we're not even going to go there with that, brother. I'm just trying to.
I am. No, the 250R is an amazing machine. I think that guys like Doug Roll and I may get this wrong, Mark Lager.
Yep.
I think the two of them just were the two guys who just took that machine and just made it that much better.
Yeah, they did, you know, and some of the things that started it off, you know, actually a lot of people give Mark Lager the credit for the first chassis. C&J made the first chassis that Roll raced in the desert early on. And then the Lager stuff came in, and then you got Roll bringing more of his stuff in when it was just Roll design. And there might have been something that I've missed along the way. There's a couple other chassis manufacturers that were out there during the day. You know, Lone Star made some stuff, and there's other people that made some good frames and things for the 250R. There's people
Lone Star came in way later though, right?
Yes, they did. But still early enough. You know, I remember we got one of the very first JP chassis JP Racing chassis for Mark Earhart for Mickey's, you know, and I was just having this conversation the other day with Doug Eichner, and he was laughing because he worked for JP at that time, but he made the swing arm. I had to use ratchet straps to get the A-arms on the machine because
It was just off.
Yeah, they didn't fit, you know. I remember the call to JP, Lauren, you know, your uncle Lauren made, you know, pissed, you know, what are we supposed to do with this? And we made it work and got it to the races. And but that was just crazy times when parts would come for them and they didn't fit. You know, you'd go to bolt things on and they just didn't, it just wasn't right. So either they were learning how to build fixtures or they just didn't understand how metal changed when you added heat to it. Mark Lager was super good about that. I mean, that guy could explain what the metal was doing on your swing arm pivot deal, what would happen when you would heat it up and it would change, and the tube that you just welded on would have a arc in it instead of be straight. And he would explain that. I apologize, I'm not good on terminology, the correct terminology. Sometimes I'm listening to exactly what's happening, but not listening to the exact words that are being said.
I understand.
They'd have to do certain things to it after they heated it like that, with other heating it the other direction stuff. Mark did all that stuff. You know, Doug Roll obviously did it. He just didn't talk about it. And they made chassis for the 250R, and that dwarfed into or manifested into making chassis for other models. But, you know, we're getting away from some of the conversation I wanted to have. You got your 250R and it's had a run since 86. We raced them competitively until 2003. They stopped making them in 89. The industry for the 250R never stopped. They were always building 250R stuff. It really kicked off again in the 2019-ish range, and rolled us into present day. And on present day, the 250R industry is full swing, wide open. Like I said, you could build a complete aftermarket machine. You can do the stock swing arm or the stock chassis with aftermarket engine. Everything you could think you could want, you can buy aftermarket for them. It's a pretty awesome deal. But
it's good. I remember back in 2017 when they were working on the billet chassis or billet cases and all of that stuff.
Well, there's two different manufacturers for the billet cases. The secondary manufacturer has a set of cases that can do multiple different size cylinders on them. So we would have to pull some information out on that of that, because there's been, I don't exactly know where you buy those. And I don't know much about hitting the market. We sell a set of the billet cases. LED, which was Arland, he sells a set, and there's a couple other guys that sell the set of cases that seem to be working. Eddie Sanders made what I would consider probably the first version, if I'm not mistaken. They didn't go over real well. I think there were some issues with them. But, you know, the set that we're working on now seems to be pretty good, you know.
Well, I mean, everybody going back to the ESR, Eddie Sanders stuff. I mean, not to defend him, but anytime you make anything new, it doesn't always work out the best time, the first time. I mean, you got to do R&D and test them, and maybe he didn't test them before he rolled them out to the public. But anybody who manufactures anything or works on anything, the first set is always problematic. You learn from it, and then you improve it, and then get a final product.
Like your grandfather always says, I wish I could have made the fifth one first.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you get all the bugs out of it, all the little quirks, all the little things you can change. And then that's where it's at. And it's usually the part that you produce. That's a whole nother conversation really about testing your products as you develop them. I know that early on in my career working with Duncan Racing, that's one of the things that we did constantly. I was always going out on the weekends when we weren't racing, testing a new product, and fitment was constantly being done and changed and worked on and worked on and worked on. I mean, even today, we fit our two-stroke pipes constantly for clearances and fits so that there's no issues. So if a customer does have an issue, we're instantly on it with photos and checking it out, trying to find out what's going on. We're not perfect, so occasionally something slips past us. And what we do is we just replace that part or work something out with the customer, whatever we got to do. But sometimes with the amount of different chassis there are, with the amount of different hangers that people use, or the fact that the chassis have been twisted because they're old, people are starting to understand that, we're fitting it off the same fixture that we've been using for 30 years, same bike, and it fits and it clears and everything is good. Same Banshee setup. I have a set of silencers on there. I rotate the silencers, but I use the same frame, same pipe mounts, and put the Banshee pipes on there. And we work very hard to improve the Banshee pipe fit. And it's got detailed instructions so that people make sure to get the radiator hoses out of the way. But there's some LTR 250R guys that are listening to this that are going to be happy. We sent the tooling off for the LT 250 to make the pipe again. We're going to get the
You're
cost.
supposed to say that yet.
Whatever. I've told a couple people. And the ETA is the ETA when it shows up. So when's it coming? You know what? It'll be here when it gets here. There's just certain things that I can't rush anymore and I can't make happen faster. So they just show up when they show up. I don't really take back orders. I write the names down and call them when I have it. If they want it, great. If they don't, I understand.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Sorry, we are getting off a little off topic. Let's get back. So you talked about Banshee. Let's switch into the Banshee. I remember distinctly going to, I believe it was Redbud, and I think it was the yellow Lager Banshee that was parked next to us. It was just a frame. Remember, I kept asking you, Dad, can you get that for me? I love that.
I don't think
I was like 5-6 years old.
I don't think it was Redbud, but yeah, so Doug Eichner got the first Banshee Lager chassis.
Yeah.
And that one, I think out of all of the Lager bikes, worked the best. The intake was the best. It made the best power. I know Martin Fletcher over in the UK did a bunch of testing on the intakes because the second style carbon intake didn't accelerate correctly. It had like a dead spot because the air wouldn't flow right. Once they figured that out, then game on, and they worked really well. They had a lot of travel. I think that with the combination of A-arms that we use nowadays with the shock technology, the longer link in the back, that a stock chassis Banshee can run with the aftermarket Lager chassis in a lot of aspects. You look at how successful Doug was on his, he won the last Mickey in 1995 with it, and then went back east in the open motocross class and dominated. I think he won in a certain 3 to 4 year stretch with that Banshee. I think he won 60 races. Yeah. Mickey Thompson's. It's the Stadium Series that was raced. It started out in fairgrounds and was like an off-road show that you could go to, and then it turned into the stadium racing that we raced until 1995, and it was pretty incredible stuff because in that era of time there was no television for anything like ATV racing, and Mickey Thompson offered the world a view into off-road racing in a stadium environment. And I still get people today that talk about watching the old ESPN reruns of the Mickey Thompson Stadium races with the trucks, Ivan Stewart and Jimmy Johnson, and so many different of the heroes. Mike Craig had an amazing career there. I think he won a couple titles. He rode for Kawasaki at the time and was super dominant. And then you have Doug Eichner, Mark Earhart, Charlie Shepard, Gary Denton, and those are just the champions that I'm rolling off the top of my head. In Mickey's, I think Don Turk won in before it was huge in the stadiums. So there's just so much of that stuff that helped build our industry was the TV time, because in Europe, that's how the Europeans found out about it and came to the States. Richard Cole came over and rode my machine in the Coliseum, before you were born, obviously, Danny.
Yeah.
So that's what a Mickey Thompson Stadium race is. They rode the LT 250 in the stadium stuff. It was never the premier machine that the Honda 250R was. A lot of people love that Suzuki. But the 85, 86 had a slower style engine with you could do less mods. Your 87 through 92 were the better choices. And we got a little deal here that I gotta get rid of. Oh shit, how do I get us back? There we are. Did the screen go blank for a second, Danny?
No.
Oh, well. We'd get that earbud deal when you hook your earbuds up. So
not to change the subject, but whoever has Eichner's Lager Banshee, we're looking for it.
Yeah, Doug would like to see if there's a way that he could ever get it back and get it back to the form that it was. It's probably been changed colors. So it went to Scott Millett in Oregon, and then he sold it. And we think it went back east to New Jersey. So we're not exactly sure where it is. But
we got on social media and all that stuff. I mean, they put a post out there for us saying, looking for, because Eichner said a couple times this last weekend when we were there that's the bike he would want back.
Right, because it was so iconic. You look at some of the old advertisements from Duncan Racing, and that was the ad, was that bike. Everybody loved that picture at Muddy Creek where he's coming down off the downhill tabletop, and it's tilted down, nose down. You can see the big number one. He's got his answer gear on and that helmet that Kohler painted for him.
I have that number one.
I know you do.
It's autographed, sitting on my toolbox.
Well, you better never let that go. Doug asked him where that was last weekend as well.
I told him I had it. He asked me too. I told him, I said, I have it. You ain't getting it back.
Well, that's good. Well, maybe we'll have to build him another one. Banshees are still really dominant in the industry. Everything's still being developed for them. The factories have cut off cases, to my knowledge, so you can't buy new cases, which I don't think you can blame them after 2006 is the last year that it was made. So in 26, it'll be 20 years since they produced the machine. I'll bet they could sell them today if they made them.
Maybe they're going to come out with a new one. Who knows? Yamaha is coming out. They're the main one in the ATV industry right now. Honda is disappointing.
Honda's disappointing. Kawasaki.
Kawasaki was never a thing. We don't even need to mention them in an ATV.
Their last Ducati three-wheeler was pretty iconic. It was pretty awesome. It was super fast. They were just never as reliable as the Honda, in my opinion. There's probably people out there that will argue, and that's okay. We were never huge Kawasaki fans. We did some work on them, but not like we did the Honda stuff.
I'm still mad at Kawasaki.
Suzuki, I guarantee if they're LTR, if they would produce that again exactly as it is, it would come out and still be competitive today. There's guys running the older versions in the National Motocross Series today.
Suzuki can't because of a modular box.
I just don't want to get into that because there's some hateful things that would come out of my mouth about a certain organization in this country. So I'm just not going to go.
But the LTR 450 was a good bike. I like the Honda 450R. The Banshee's always had a soft spot for me. I love the Banshee. I remember fixing the Banshee for Raphael Sonic in the middle of the desert, in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the desert for him.
Yeah, one of the ones that we had that we used at the shop for we raced it some, and we made multiple different looks on it for articles, and I don't even remember what we did with that Banshee.
Raphael bought it. Raphael's buddy bought it. The kid, you just sold his 450R.
Okay, I remember.
They bought it.
Yeah,
that and the Lobo the same weekend.
So it went over to Europe, and who knows where it is now. I think Raphael still has that Lobo.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. It was number 7. Whose was it? Was that Ben Jackson's?
It was Eichner's.
Eichner? I don't remember Eichner being 7.
Practice Lobo. That was Eichner's practice Lobo, and then the Lobo that Lauren and Roll set him up with just sold here recently to Craig
we don't
Christie.
Want to talk about that.
Well, whatever. It just sold, and I was told the other Friday to, restore it because it's been 20 years. So we're going to pull it apart.
It doesn't need to be restored. It's perfect. It needs to go on a shelf somewhere.
It needs some TLC. Doug didn't ride it very much, but it sat a lot, so it's got some oxidization on it and things like that. So we're going to pull it apart and clean it up and make it better, make it all new for Craig.
Nice. He won't ride it though.
Yeah, he's going to ride it.
Really? Oh man!
Yeah, he showed me that beautiful three-wheel that we just did for him. He's going to ride that in the dunes.
Oh man!
Yeah, because he had hip surgery, so he's able to move around better, and he is way happier now. Way happier.
I had the Lobo in the bed of my truck, and I was joking with you that I wasn't going to let it out of the bed of my truck. Well, I sent the picture to Garen Fuller. I was like, no big deal, just a legend in the bed of my truck. And he loved it. He was like, he was super jealous. He's like, I'm jealous. But I mean, that bike is just, I don't know.
But it never got raced.
I know, but it's so beautiful. Like the color on it, everything. It's just, I love that bike.
He jumped onto the Kawasaki, the KX400 and the KX700. When we had a stint with Kawasaki right there in the 2003.
You remember when he jumped that 110-foot double in El Cajon on that 700?
Yep.
Scared the shit out of everybody. Steve Billman tried doing it on a Z400 and wrecked right behind him.
400EX.
400EX. All right.
Yeah, I did it the same day later on and almost crashed myself. So I get it, I only jumped it one time and never jumped it again.
So we've gone through all of the good bikes. We've gone through the YFZ 450, the LTR.
We didn't go through. We didn't talk about right now the mainstay machine in the industry. It hit the industry in 2009. It's 2023. It's a huge run. They're still making it. It's probably going to be one of the most widely sold machines ever. Is the YFZ 450R. I mean, it's fuel injected. It's got a super stout transmission. The head is really strong and really good. It gives a lot of people the false sense of security that they don't have to change the oil or clean the air filter because they're so reliable. The weak link, which you can't even really call it a weak link, but the weakest part of the whole motor is the crank. And that's comes from, people just not changing the oil. We can get into engine design and style, but, we talked about the 400EX, which was great. There's so many other models that we missed, blasters and Raptor 250s that are great startup machines. Your sister rode a blaster. I think you rode a blaster for a short stint.
I rode a 300EX.
Right. I mean, these are machines that are, most of them are still being used today in the industry because there's nothing made for the smaller framed human. The younger kids, you're talking, maybe 10 to 15. There's just not a machine for them in the
By
industry.
law, 12 to 15.
Well, whatever. You don't want to get me started. So, your blaster, and the only reason I bring up the blaster is for Joe Tolley from ATV On Demand, because he loves the blaster. He thinks that's the greatest starter bike ever. Personally,
The Raptor 250 is better.
I think the Raptor 250 is more reliable. Not as many of them out there, I don't think, as the blaster. The blaster still got a huge amount of machines out there. You can still buy a lot of parts for them, to my knowledge. And there's enough that you can, if you can't find it new, you can still find it good used. So
they're just so ugly.
Well, dude, not everything can be beautiful. I mean, the LT 230 was probably one of the ugliest ATVs sold, and it was a really cool machine. It had a side kick. It was super reliable, super durable. Probably one of the better machines that Suzuki made, even though it's super old in suspension design. So it's just going to be something that you trail ride. They never really made it a racer because it just was never little short shots and things like that.
The Warrior was a good bike too.
And it's made a comeback. Also in this time where people are taking their Warriors and trying to fix them up, and the motors in the Warriors were super, super reliable, just like the 400EX. That's the misconception with the 4-stroke today from the 4-stroke of yesteryear. Everybody thinks that they're the same. Just because they're both 4-strokes doesn't mean they're the same. They're not even. The old 4-strokes made most of their power in the middle. They were just chug-alongs. They were super heavy. Today's 4-stroke motor revs super high, runs a short stroke with a big piston, and they just make tons of power. They're lighter weight. They do things that the old school stuff was never going to do, and you have to treat it like an IndyCar engine. You got to change the oil every time you ride it and put a clean air filter on it. You have to do these things. If you don't, they will break. All the models,
Do you think Honda is going to come out with another 450?
No.
You don't think so?
Nope, I bet.
Look at how long they took in between the
It was legal.
250R.
It was legal. It was a legal reason.
Yeah, but no. I'm talking about the 250R and the 450.
Well, they came out with a 450 to compete with Yamaha, who dropped the 450. Okay, Suzuki drops the Z400 and Kawasaki drops the KFX 400. They rule for not even a year. Yamaha drops a 450 that blows the wheels off the industry. It doesn't win a title, to my knowledge, in the first year that it comes out. The next year, the Honda 450 drops, wins championships in its first year. It gets destroyed in the magazines because it doesn't have the same great acceleration that the Yamaha did, but was more reliable. They said it had a soft fourth gear. To my knowledge, it didn't, because we never had a problem with it.
That's because Eichner was in fifth gear the whole time, tapped.
No, but the 0405 Honda on the West Coast kind of ruled until just recently in the last couple of years, because you couldn't buy cases, you couldn't buy some of the parts anymore. But for the longest time, you could buy the case, you could buy tranny parts, you could buy the cranks and rebuild the engines. And we were racing those because the tranny or the lower end was more reliable than the 06 to 14 model. Now everybody's running the 06 to 14 model because you can't buy the 0405 stuff. I'm hearing that in 25, you probably won't be able to buy some of the Honda stuff.
Well, that just is sad because I think Honda will. I personally think Honda is going to. I mean, look at all the stuff that they're doing right now in the dirt bike side. They're gonna come back and do it with the quads. I can't not see them doing it personally. I mean, they have 20 years in between. You know what I mean? Like they got it. 2024 will be 20 years for their 450. They're going to come out with a new 450 in 2024.
They say that
because I don't know anything, but
they say there's a depressed economy. But in my opinion, I think that if Honda came out with a machine, it would be a fierce competitor to the Yamaha, even if it was the same exact machine, because there's so many diehard Honda people out there that would rather buy a Honda than any other model. New parts means a resurgence of that machine. I've been rumor mill. I've heard that something's coming. Not going anywhere other than the rumor mill that I've heard. There's a couple different designs of the Honda that I've heard about. But the Honda is not what I've heard is coming, but I've heard that there's something coming. So we'll see in the next year or so if that's true. But I've also been hearing since, 2020 that something was coming. But when the pandemic hit or the illness hit, the world kind of stopped working. And now that people don't want to work, it's harder to build machines. It's harder to produce parts. Just go to your local Yamaha shop or Honda shop and buy something that's not in stock. It used to take 3 days. Now you're talking 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks before it shows up. So there's a change in the industry. We're heading towards the end of our discussion, and we've had a discussion about there is no greatest of all time. There are just loves in the industry, and the 250R is still loved. The Banshee still loved. The ATC 250R is still loved. There is a huge following for the YZ 450R, which there should be, because it is a great machine. And there's other models that we didn't talk about as well that people still really like. And we didn't even mention LT 500s. That's the cult following forever. Anybody that owns an LT 500 probably owns 2, maybe 3.
Yeah, they're cool bikes. They have no front suspension, but they're cool bikes.
Yeah, they got front suspension. It works. They're awesome.
What does it have? 7 inches of travel?
Probably,
6?
but you got so much power. The front end is always light, so it doesn't matter. And you're not going to race that machine. You're going to go ride that in the dunes or show it off in specific environments, because it's a big single 4-stroke that just, when you romp on the gas, it freaking barks, and it's just a lot of fun to have that machine. Like I said, it's the iconic big guy machine, and you see a bunch of tons of little guys riding it, and there's still parts being made for that. Some of the stuff from the factory's not, but there's aftermarket guys that are trying to develop those and make them better. We'll see how it goes in the future. I don't think that the 500 is going to go away, but it doesn't have the same group following that the 250R does. So
No.
You're going to have to pull all of the resources together to get them to buy the parts. Like if you made cases for them, you'd have to get the group of people for 500s to buy the cases,
Yeah.
Tranny gear.
We can run through a list of the worst ATVs ever made.
No, let's move on
KFX 450, number 1. I lost the championship because of it. The Polaris.
It handled
It
good.
handled great, but it was slow and it was unreliable. The wiring harnesses sucked. It would go into limp mode because
Bitter. You're
what?
just bitter. You're just bitter,
I am.
Danny, because
Well, the Cannondale, we didn't even talk about the Cannondale. The Cannondale.
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about Cannondales. I want to switch gears. I want to change and transition
Okay.
into the basically the news portion. You know, we've touched on the ATVs a lot. I want to roll into it, just a motorcycle segment, just for a very short, brief moment. You know, Jet Lawrence is perfect so far this year. He's won every moto after 5 races. Not everybody's back, but they've trickled in and out, and they just can't seem to beat this kid. No matter what they throw at him, he's just unbeatable. Ken Roxon.
He beat Chase Sexton by 18 seconds in the first moto.
That's all you need to say. And Chase Sexton is supposed to be the end all be all guy. I would love to see how he would go head to head with Eli Tomac, and maybe Dungey, but
Dungey in his prime. I don't know about Dungey now.
Right, but Tomac in my opinion, I was never a Villapoto fan, even though he was a great champion. Maybe it was just because he rode a green bike. Who knows? But just keep on track. Jet is dominating right now, and in the near future, you're not going to see, I don't think, anybody better. When we roll into Supercross next year, Jet's going to be the guy, and I don't think any of these guys got anything for him. So for the next foreseeable future, this is the guy. As long as Honda doesn't screw up the chassis like they've done screwing up the motorcycle for Marc Marquez in MotoGP,
they won't. So going into the 250 class, Hunter Lawrence, we're praying for you, bud. We hope you have a speedy recovery. He did a fall in the first corner of yesterday's second moto, won the first moto in pretty dominant fashion, and then crashed in the second moto. And from what I understand, it's a rib and right arm injury. We'll know more on Monday. Got to give it up to Hayden Deegan. He rode a pretty solid race yesterday and got the overall. He's also only 9 points back from Hunter Lawrence now in the championship, which is honestly, that's pretty huge for a rookie to be in second place in points when you have somebody like RJ Hampshire, Freddie Kitchen, all of these veteran guys who, are chasing him in the points. RJ Hampshire has had some bike issues and some other stuff. I do want to give a shout out because for a privateer, Ty Masterpool. I don't know if you've heard of him, Dad, but he was doing extremely well yesterday. He had a shock blowout in the first race, and he also got taken out when he was in third or fourth place by Adam Cianciarulo, or he would have finished in the top 5 as a privateer. And then in the second moto, he was in third place and his engine blew. He is his family pays, and he pays for everything for his motorcycle. He has a mechanic that comes to the races. He's his own mechanic, I guess, from what I understand, during the week, and he works during the week too. So you have a privateer who is, he podiumed last week or 2 weeks ago. He would have finished in the top 5 again this week if he didn't have bike failure. So you got to give it up to him, and somebody needs to pick him up.
I'm sure somebody will with finishes like that. So we roll into GNCC. The guys there, it took 7 rounds before they had, or 8 rounds before they had a dual leader in the premier class in the 450s and the motorcycles. They've only had 2 guys double, and they're not even in the points lead. So the class is super competitive. Anybody in that top 7 guys can win at any given moment, any given time. I don't think that that's the normal history of XC racing on motorcycles or ATVs. Usually there's, 1 guy or 2 guys that are dominant, and that's who's running away with it. In the ATV side, Bryson Neal has started to separate himself from the field. Walker Fowler came back in snowshoe, and on the first lap on time was leading the race. which there's a lot of people excited about that. So we'll get to see some more from Walker. He ended up 6th for the day. And we're glad to have you back, Walker. It's awesome that you've recovered, and that's going to change the XC platform for moving forward. They're on summer break. It'll give Walker more time to train and get in better shape for coming back for the final 3 rounds of the XC. There's some other guys that are making some moves there also that, are a lot of fun to watch. The battle that's happening that I think a lot of people should focus on is in the WXC with Jessica Elioff and Hannah Hunter. They keep throwing blows at one another, and it's a win versus a win versus a win, and they're 3 points apart. And you have a 3-time champ fighting against somebody that 3 years ago didn't race quads in the woods. So
excuse my ignorance, isn't there another Hunter in the men's 450?
They're not the same Hunter. Hannah Hunter,
they're not related,
and Hunter Hart.
Okay, I thought it was Hunter Hart, but I was like, maybe I have that mixed up. Maybe it's his wife, maybe it's his sister. I don't know. But
Hunter Hart,
excuse my ignorance, guys. Sorry.
Hunter Hart is a kick-ass guy. He's a lot of fun to talk to.
Yeah.
He's one of those people that once you meet Hunter, you'll never forget him. I really enjoy talking with him. You look at the veterans in XC with Jared McClure just got on the podium, riding a Honda. He got 3rd at the last round. And unfortunately, Adam McGill, I guess, was in the lead and had a mechanical. I don't know what the mechanical was, but they said he was down in the hole, this famous portion of the snowshoe course, and they couldn't get him out and couldn't fix him. So he just sat down there with the fans and enjoyed the race, having a couple brews and making the best of it for the day. So Adam McGill, we're sorry you had a problem, bud, but keep fighting. You're having an amazing year.
That's the difference between the dirt bikes and the quads. The dirt bike rider would have walked back to the pit. The quad guy sits there and has a couple of beers with the fans. That's rad.
I think that's why the crowd at XC loves the ATV people so much, because they're not the prima donna motorcycle people. Like one of our fans said, they're all overpaid sissies. I mean, I'm not going to call them that, but they do think themselves above, and they've mostly forgot where they came from.
What are you talking about?
Motorcycles, overpaid motorcycle racers.
Yeah, not to get into
the ATV guys. There's just a handful of guys in the world making money racing ATVs, and there's lots of motorcycle guys making money, but that's neither here nor there. Yesterday in the pro class in the ATV MX, the unthinkable happened. Joel Hetrick didn't make the podium.
I can't believe he lost a moto. I thought he was going to Jet Lawrence it and just destroy it all year.
Gatorback was the upsetting deal for him when him and Chad got together on the start and caused that whole incident. But he came back and got 3rd for the day. This time, he got 2nd in the first moto with Bryce Ford winning it. In the second moto, he got a 12th, which gave him a 6th overall for the day, or 5th overall for the day. And Chad Wienen went 1-5 for 2nd on the day when Bryce Ford went 1-2. And Kevin Saar
2-1.
2-1. No. Bryce went 1-2 because he won the first moto.
Okay, so then Wienen went 5-1.
Correct. And Kevin Saar had like a 4-6 and got 3rd, so he was on the podium. So
that's awesome.
From all the way from across the pond, the guy comes over here and gets on the podium. Look out, everybody in Europe. This guy's for real. He's coming. There are some extenuating circumstances to the event. I do not have all the details other than one of the motos. Both of the motos were very mixed up. There was a lot of crazy things going on. Cody Ford was, I believe, third in the first moto. Cody Ford, I don't think in the pro classes got in the top three in any moto ever. This is the first time he's ever been that far up. Nothing against Cody, but Dane Molander was in the top 5 on the Suzuki, and he's a rookie. So there was a lot of different things going on in that moto, but it went Bryce Ford, Chad Wienen, Kevin Sarr. Congratulations, gentlemen. Joel, I hope you're okay and everything is all right in his program. But yeah, lots of stuff going on. So I know they're racing the British Championship right now in the UK. Harry Walker was the fast qualifier that I seen. But there again, I don't have updates coming that fast, so I don't know everything. We'll be publishing on Friday a race report. And everybody, this is a special week for ATV Talk. So if you could check out our postings and episode on Tuesday, it's Doug Eichner. It's also our 3rd year anniversary. So thank you for everybody that's got us here. We really appreciate it.
I don't want anybody to, not to go back, but I don't want anybody to think that we don't like Joel Hetrick or anything like that. Because he sat there and we had an hour conversation with him with the Huevos event. Super nice guy, super nice. We're great. Honestly, I'm a huge fan of his, but having a mix up and having somebody else win a race is exciting. I don't know exactly what happened to Joel. I think he'll probably dominate the rest of the series and probably win every race going out, but it is nice to see some change. That's one of the things, like I turned off outdoor motocross yesterday after Jet Lawrence got the whole shot in the second moto. And, Frenchie was right there with him for about 2 laps. And then all of a sudden it was like Jet upshifted and was, 10 seconds in the lead. And I ended up shutting it off because it's just not as entertaining. But having a different winner, having somebody who's competitive, like the race with Ken Roxon a few weeks ago, that's entertainment. And Ken Roxon can give him his first loss. Jet Lawrence came back and beat him, but it gets boring when the same person wins over and over and over again, unless they ride for Duncan Racing and their name is Doug Eichner. That's the only person I've ever wanted to go out and have win by 5 minutes every race, but that's different. He's Uncle Doug and I have a personal relationship with him, but you want competition. We're out here to compete, not get dominated by the same person each time. So I hope Joel does come back, and I hope he does do really well. And I don't wish ill on him at all. I really like him as a person. I think he trains harder than everybody else, and that's part of the reason why he is dominating. But it is nice to see somebody else win. Congratulations to Mr. Ford, and Chad Wienen's always been one of my favorites. I've liked him even when he rode for Can-Am and Kawasaki, and I remember him coming out to the works race and blowing up a Kawasaki motor and giving me his jersey. And I'm a huge Chad Wienen fan too, and it's just nice to have some change.
Exactly. Competition is always great for the industry, and it breeds more fans. But yes, we are friends with Joel and Chad. We're friends with all of them, and I enjoy talking with all of them. They always bring different insights, but we thought that everybody would like that update. Have an amazing 4th of July, everybody. Please check out our episode, ATV Talk. It's our 3rd anniversary, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. And thank you so much for all your support throughout the years.
It's dropping on 4th of July.
On 4th of July, 5:00 Pacific Standard Time. My amazing young lady over here that does all the hard work, Valeria, has worked overtime for us, and she's edited out a bunch of background noise because we did that episode at an event live at the event at the expo with people walking by and asking questions while the show was happening. And but there was some background noise in there, and I do apologize for it ahead of time. And I said that in the episode, so please understand that it was taped at a live expo. Doug Eichner doesn't get to come and see us very often since he moved to Arizona, but it was really great to spend some time with my friend Doug. And, I got to travel for 13 and a half years with Doug.
You're
All
missing
over-
somebody there.
Pardon?
You're missing somebody. There was somebody else with you guys.
You were with us some, but not always.
90% of the time.
No, dude, because we went all over the world and you didn't get to go to all of those races. You got to watch him. You got to watch Doug win in Europe. When we went over there, when your dad got to race Rendezvous.
Yeah,
You got to go to Rendezvous. Unfortunately, you didn't get to ride, but
I know.
all right, everybody.
Maybe one day.
Thank you so much. Have an amazing 4th of July, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.